Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this webinar today. We're going to cover the new ITIL version 5, what's changed. I can see that a few of you are still connecting in, so I'll just allow a little bit more time for everybody to connect on. But welcome to all of you. Thank you for signing up for the event. Hopefully you're going to find the information provided today of great use for you. Just to let you know that the plan for the session is that we've got an hour for me to cover the content and allow time at the end for you to ask plenty of questions. This is an opportunity for you to get to understand what has changed with ITIL, what does it mean to you and your organisation, and particularly the qualification scheme. And I am recording the event, which means that anybody that's signed up to the event will receive a link to the recording after the event, as well as copies of the slides. So hopefully I'm going to give you all that you need to enable yourselves to consider ITIL version 5 moving forwards and recognise the benefits that it's going to bring to you and your organisation. I'm Adam Saul. My contact details are there on the slide, so feel free to make a note of those things and keep in touch, get in contact after the session. Certainly if there's anything further that we can assist you with, then absolutely I want to hear from you hear from you about those things. Okay, let's just sort of share with you what I'm intending to cover today. So I'm going through the welcome, looking at ITIL, the need for evolution, really, the context and drivers behind this latest update. I'll give you a briefing on what's specifically new in ITIL, but I think a key thing to keep on board is that ITIL hasn't changed dramatically with this new version. There is a lot of continuity from ITIL 4, and if you have gone down that path, whether it's through your training or whether it's through your organizational wide implementation, then you'll sort of see that there are still key elements that sit within ITIL 4. But there was a need for updates, and I'll take you through those things. We'll also look at the new revised ITIL version 5 qualification scheme. You'll sort of see that while some courses remain, there has been a huge development in changing some of the key publications and therefore the associated training courses. So we'll bring that to life for you. We're going to look at implications for you as practitioners and the wider organisation, and sort of the benefits that this stuff brings, really, but also finishing off with the opportunity for you to ask questions. You've probably realised that you're not able to switch on your microphones given the volume of people that are connecting in. And the cameras are switched off. The way to communicate with me is via the chat facility and the Q&A option within Teams. So when we get to the end of the session, hopefully you'll have posted some information in there, and I can sort of tidy up those communications when I get to the end. And I'm certainly allowing time for us to go through and do those things. I always like running these sessions. It's always nice to see repeat delegates, people who have been on our sessions before, been through our training, lots of new people as well. So we've got a bit of a mixture based on those. So welcome back, those of you who have been on our events before. It's nice to see you again, but always nice to see the new people as well. Bit of information about myself on there. I've sort of been through my ITIL journey, starting off at ITIL version 2, through to ITIL Expert, ITIL 4 Managing Professional, and trying to keep up with things at the moment. I've fairly recently completed my ITIL version 5 Foundation Certificate, and obviously the plan is to go through and update my qualifications, because I am our products lead, not just for ITIL 4, but for all of SysOps training content. So yeah, it's keeping me very busy, just making sure that I'm keeping on top of these things, and hopefully I can sort of bring to life a lot of the knowledge that I've gained so far, having gone through that particular process. Just a bit of a reflect back then, sort of travelling through ITIL, and we sort of talk about different versions. ITIL version 3 was originally launched in 2007. Obviously there's 2 and 1 prior to that. Of course, we didn't call it ITIL version 1 back then, but I'm really just focusing on these 3 iterations, the most recent 3, because ITIL version 3 introduced a process-driven service lifecycle. You probably remember the service strategy, service design, service transition, service operations, and continual service improvement. And we moved away from that, it seemed, when we went into ITIL 4, when we launched the service value system, which is more about the end-to-end value-driven approach. And we sort of lost some of those service lifecycle elements. And you'll see as we get into ITIL 5 that we've kind of restored this service lifecycle approach, but also enabled it to incorporate the sort of the product side of things as well. So ITIL version 5 today is not about reinventing the wheel. It's not about replacing some good content that was available to us in ITIL 4. It's about refining and operationalizing the model, making it more practical, because ITIL 4 introduced a lot of concepts that in theory were of great value, but actually interpreting them and putting them into practice has been seen as a broader challenge. So that's one of the sort of the key drivers behind the update and evolving us on and creating ultimately more value for ourselves and our organisations. So evolution was required, not revolution. And I know that's a phrase that sort of gets thrown out a lot, but it's when ITIL 4 was launched, it certainly looked very, very different from ITIL version 3. That's not quite the case with ITIL version 5. I would say that that sort of the core concepts remain. I think that there was just sort of a need to operationalize and practicalize the content and reflect sort of the feedback from the real world adoption, really. When this theory was launched in 2019, if you remember, initially we just talked about the managing professional route and the strategic leader route, where we had the publications of create, deliver and support, high velocity IT, drive stakeholder value, direct, plan and improve, and digital and IT strategy. And that was good content, all useful stuff, looking at how the modern world is changing and how we need to adapt our modern ways of working to ensure that the emphasis is on value co-creation and all of those aspects. But when we actually applied that into the real world, then I think that there was an element of practical guidance that was missing from that. The service value system, the value streams, the guiding principles were great. Initially, we didn't have the detailed practice guides. They emerged over time, and they provided more of a practical element. And you may remember that from a qualification point of view, the practice manager qualification was introduced for which broadly covered 15 ITIL practices, for example, incident management, problem management, change enablement. And they were more practical, but over time, even those publications have been updated to also incorporate things like the ITIL maturity model. What does it look like to have a level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5 incident management practice? And what are those key elements that we need to incorporate? All of that good content has emerged into the practice guides anyway, but it now sort of there's a need to widen that practical aspect and look at how we might actually operationalize some of these key concepts of value streams and guiding principles and the service value system. So there was a bit of a sort of lack of take up in those areas. So again, one of the key drivers was to try to bring that more to life and bring it to the fore. Managing digital products, platforms and services. Well, there was definitely a service emphasis in ITIL 4. If those of you who sort of looked at ITIL 4, the publications and the training, we kind of talk about products and services together. And we talk about them as being different things, but we manage them together in the same way. You sort of see that the service value chain, if you remember, we had those six activities that contribute towards our products and services. Well, how we go about managing products in the real world is different to how we go about managing services. And some organizations will do both, of course. But when we sort of look at, to give an example of when we talk about products, if we're talking about the development of an application, well, we might be an organization that's there to develop applications and sell them on the open market. And we'd still consider to be a service provider in the traditional sense from an ITIL 4 perspective. Well, ITIL version 5 introduces the term of a a product vendor, and we also are looking at the what's involved in managing products and digital products and all of those aspects as well. And that developed a need for further guidance in how we go about doing those things. Measuring value through experience and outcomes. Again, experience was something which we talked about on ITIL 4. If you remember, we sort of touched upon when we're looking at the focus on value guiding principle, we explored how customer experience and user experience makes an active contribution towards value in terms of the perception of an overall service, and experience contributes to all of those things. But there's much more to that, really, much more guidance to understand from a customer's perspective, a user's perspective, and an employee's perspective as well. So looking at how we can embrace experience more and incorporate that into the wider core portfolio was key too. And finally, the continuing emergence of artificial intelligence, AI. Increasingly, we as a population, we're looking at an AI as a capability, looking at enhancing the way that we do things, and the challenges that creates in terms of, well, opportunities that it creates are great, of course, but there are challenges also in terms of how do we govern that. So looking at the governance of AI was another key aspect that was incorporated into this new release of ITIL 5. Effectively, we're looking at how we can be AI native in the things that we're doing, looking at embracing AI and automation and how we can enable opportunities for us to enhance the way that we do things across our wider service provider landscape. So these are things that were sort of driving the thought process behind why there was a need for change. What has specifically changed? Well, I've touched upon some of these things already. So expanding from just looking at IT services, looking at being a bit more product led as well, looking at not just product management, but the digital side of things. So looking at digital products and services, how we need to reflect management of those services in the most effective way overall. So that was a key driver. Stronger focus on experience and value, putting the experience at the centre of service management. More guidance on, from a user experience point of view, for example, how we might incorporate active designs into the products and services that are being provided. From a customer experience point of view, how do we embrace onboarding in the most effective way of customers and making sure that we're enabling service for them in that most effective way. We talked about AI native and automation aware framework. We needed to recognize change from an artificial intelligence point of view. We need to make sure that we're leveraging any opportunity for us to enhance our AI capability, but doing it in a controlled way as well. Governance and risk management for AI is key, and that key change has incorporated into ITIL 5 when you sort of see the broader publications that are available. I sort of mentioned that ITIL version 3, we had this life cycle approach. Well, ITIL version 5 reintroduces this end-to-end life cycle for digital products and services. Kind of the service value chain has evolved to recognise individual products and services. We need to be considerate of each of the life cycle stages that are required in terms of that full life cycle of product and services, how we're going to manage that in the most appropriate way. So we'll look at the products and service life cycle shortly to sort of demonstrate that perspective. Greater practical guidance for our practitioners. You know, looking at the practical elements involved with, okay, we sort of talk about the service value system and the service value chain being an operating model. Well, let's get a bit more detailed in terms of, so how might we use these operating models? How might we reflect on value streams and achieve that end-to-end approach in all the things that we do in terms of capturing demand all the way through to realizing value? And how can we integrate the various practices across the teams across the organization? As I've already mentioned, the practice guides, there are still 34 practices in the ITIL version 5 framework, the same as 4. There's been no additional practices added in, but the existing practice guides will of course be updated to, and they have been subject to constant update really, as some of the things I've already mentioned in terms of the introduction of practical guidance, the ITIL maturity assessment, and the things that we want to be considering in terms of alignment with that particular model, but now also bringing in elements that fit around things like artificial intelligence and the practical use of those guidance documents will be updated to reflect those things. And of course, this all leads to an updated certification and learning pathways. One of the, I think, criticisms of the previous ITIL 4 qualification scheme was that we had those modules that I listed off earlier, and it wasn't very clear on the target audience for those particular publications and the associated training modules. So having an updated qualification scheme which is clearer, very straightforward in terms of the content that's being covered and where that might sit within a delegate's area of interest, I think will help to really emphasise the benefits of this advanced content that's available on there beyond the actual ITIL Foundation course. But also I've touched upon AI governance as well, a new AI governance extension module, which is really there to recognise that we need to be supporting responsible AI adoption. And whilst this is all about machines doing work for us, if you like, there's that human element that's involved to make sure that that this is governed in the most appropriate way. So that kind of gives you a flavour of the sort of the content that's changed as we've gone through ITIL 5. What does that mean in practice? Well, these are the ITIL 4 publications. So things like create, deliver and support, high velocity IT, drive stakeholder value, direct plan and improve digital and IT strategy. We're not removing this content out of the framework, it's just been redistributed, if you like. That's the better way of framing it. So these are retiring publications. These are publications that don't exist in the ITIL version 5 scheme anymore, alongside the supporting publications of acquiring and managing cloud services, sustainability and digital IT, business relationship management, and IT asset management. So all of these will be retired over time, or rather, I suppose that they're not contributing towards the version 5 framework. But what has been introduced instead, what does that mean in practice? Well, these are the new ITIL Managing Professional publications, and of course, like was the same situation with ITIL 4, there are matching certification courses to go with each of these various publications. So on this slide, product, service and experience. Well, I talked about in ITIL 4, we very much had a service focus. We talked about there being a value is co-created between an active collaboration between the service provider and the service consumer. And the emphasis, even though we sort of talked about products and services, was all on the service aspect. And the subtle difference between products and services, as I say, a good example of products is that we're looking at the way that we develop applications. You know, we're combining resources together that potentially could fulfill a need of our customers or create value in some way. But the service element is more all about identifying specifically who those customers are, what their specific needs are, and the service levels that we should be working towards. Recognizing that we want to define service levels and manage those services and put the service wraparound to make sure that the effective support is there in terms of those services that are being provided. Whereas the product emphasis, as I say, more from a product vendor perspective, providing guidance for organizations that help them design, develop and deliver digital products which are going to ultimately contribute towards services, but that having that separate element is quite key. So I think it does help to sort of look at these examples from a product perspective. you would expect sort of software vendors, SaaS providers, technology platform providers to all be interested in this product publication. From a service point of view, we're looking at more the service provider, managed service providers. And it says internal IT organizations on there, but I also want to make a point that one of the key questions that I've been asked so far on courses that I've provided with my students is, well actually, if we're an internal IT element, we're developing our own applications and then supporting them from a service perspective, surely we do both of these things. And that is exactly how it's intended to be. Products and service organizations do exist. Many organizations operate both product and service models. So some examples on there, but the bottom one, the enterprise is delivering internal digital products and IT services. So the idea is that we bring these two elements together so that we understand products and the makeup of those products, and we're capturing customers' requirements and understanding those aspects, and then putting the service emphasis on when we're starting to think about going to market and those actual products and services being used in the real world. Yeah, so I would imagine that if you're in that situation as an internal IT organisation, which I know that some of you are looking at the delegate list, then I think that both of these elements would be of relevance to you. If you are somebody who is actively involved in software development, then obviously the product publication and the associated course would be of most interest. If you're more reflecting on working with customers, agreeing what their requirements are, identifying for service overall, agreeing service levels, conducting service review meetings, then that's perhaps more stuff that you would expect to see via the service aspect. So we have products and we have service as separate publications, and we'll have a dedicated publication for experience. So this is really raising the emphasis and the need for experience overall. So a stronger focus on experience management as a measure of value. Some of you are probably well aware that sort of the term service level agreement is evolving out there to an XLA, an experience level agreement, because when we're looking at service levels, we traditionally sort of talk about things like utility and warranty. Well, in ITIL 4, we kind of introduced that we should be reflecting on experience as well and incorporating that as part of the service quality as well. But ITIL 5 builds on that, which is where this experience publication comes from, but it also extends it out even further to reflect on things like sustainability. So the element of service quality, which incorporates utility, warranty, experience and sustainability, provides a more rounded view of service quality as a whole, and there's a greater emphasis on that, and that's part of what experience is all about, but reflecting on not just the user and customer experience, but also optimizing the employee experience, because clearly the more positive experience our employees have within our organisation, the more effective they're going to be at contributing towards value in the best possible way. So the aim is to ensure that services deliver meaningful outcomes for stakeholders, aligned with the experience that they would expect to receive from our products and services. And so those are the managing professional publications. So I suppose these are the ones which have replaced Create, Deliver and Support, High Velocity IT, Direct, Plan and Improve, and Drive Stakeholder Value. But there are other new publications as well: Transformation, Strategy and AI Governance. So Transformation builds on a publication that was released fairly recently called How to Implement ITIL. And this is all about providing guidance through digital transformation and organizational change. If we're looking to evolve an organization, introduce significant change, develop operating models in the most appropriate way and add the modern delivery approaches, then we need some guidance in terms of how we go about doing that. And then aligning the service management with the wider organizational strategy is a key aspect that we would expect to see within that transformation module. And you'll sort of see that when I get onto the qualification scheme, it kind of sits at the sort of the top level to bridge all of the certification levels of practice manager, managing professional and strategic leader, which do still exist. So the transformation module is that high level cap. We had digital and IT strategy in ITIL 4. We now have a strategy module, which is all about guidance, so very much built on that content, really. Not just digital and IT strategy, but other areas as well. But guidance on aligning digital products and services with organizational strategy and business objectives. All of that stuff that we talk about, what is the vision? What are the cascading objectives and goals of the wider organization? And can we make sure that the overall approach from the IT service provider is in alignment with those aspects? So again, value being the forefront of all of those discussions, but making sure that the strategy is as you would expect in terms of delivering that long-term organizational success. And as I've already mentioned, AI governance, which is kind of seen as a separate specialist module, and I think it's fair to say that there might be other specialist modules which emerge as ITIL version 5 develops even further, but at the moment we just have AI governance, but recognising that that we need guidance on the governance and responsible use of AI within digital services and operations. So a dedicated publication for AI governance as a whole. I think that the whole area of governance has been enhanced across ITIL version 5 as well. I think it's fair to say. We kind of sort of touch upon governance as being one of the key components of the service value system, but governing an organisation in a digital world is a challenge, and making sure we have the most appropriate steps in place to do that is absolutely a key focus. And AI governance is just an example of that, but a dedicated publication just to make sure that we are accountable for AI and we're managing it in the most appropriate way. So those are the publications that are new. Just to give you an insight into this slide here, I was umming and ahhing about including this because it isn't an exact mapping, and I don't want to leave you with the impression that it is. That's why I have this warning down here. This is for illustrative purposes, really. There's no exact mapping between ITIL 4 publications and version 5, but if you wanted me to sort of give you a bit of a flavour, that's what this slide is there to do. So product and service, there are elements of create, deliver and support and high velocity IT carved up into those publications, but obviously our product is from a product perspective, service is from a service perspective. Experience is aligned with drive stakeholder value. Drive stakeholder value introduced the customer journey, and we're building on that with experience, because of course key elements of experience is understanding those key interactions between the customer and the service provider, or the user and the service provider, and optimizing all of those things. So you can see why that fits in neatly. From a transformation perspective, direct plan and improve, sustainability in digital IT, just recognising that sustainability is a consideration of transformation as well these days, and digital and IT strategy would contribute towards transformation. AI governance is effectively all new content, really, but strategy is not just digital and IT strategy as I positioned earlier, but it also ties in with elements of direct plan and improve as well. So as I say, it gives you a bit of a flavour of how this has been redistributed, but there is new content in there as well. It's certainly not just a case of repackaging it up in different ways, but there is a mapping there which perhaps gives you a bit more of a visual of what's going on. ITIL version 5 introduces the product and service lifecycle model, which this is what I was referring to earlier. When ITIL version 3 had the service lifecycle, we lost that as we went into ITIL 4. It has come back, and you might sort of reflect on, if you're familiar with ITIL 4, this is the service value chain. Well, there is different lenses here. We have a product and service lifecycle model, which is based on the emphasis being on our products and services, looking at these core 8 areas of activities, if you like. And the idea is that for each of our services, we should be considering each of these 8 aspects to understand the makeup of that particular service. So we're managing products as well as services, so that becomes a key part of that. We want clearer life cycle guidance, and using these 8 life cycle management activities will help us to establish that end-to-end view of products and services. This helps tie into supporting value streams more practically, and enabling us to consider value streams in a more proactive, practical way, and that enables us to consider things like product teams, continuous delivery, platform engineering, things which are more products driven, I would say, but it enables us to consider those approaches as well. You may Actually, I was moving ahead to a slide that's coming up. I think this slide just helps just to give you a bit of a visual of how this might work in practice. Yeah, I'm trying not to cause confusion with it, but just to give you a view. So if we're looking at, we have products and services across our organisation, and those products and services are different, and they will potentially use the life cycle in different ways. So we've got some examples on here just from an organisational perspective of products or services. So if there is a custom business automation solution, it could well be that all of these activities here, and this is just to give you an insight into what's changed, so I'm not going to go into this into too much detail, but it's representing here that all 8 of these activities would be relevant for how we go about managing that particular service from an organisational perspective. And this is the key element that we need to consider when we're looking at the difference between this product and service lifecycle and a value chain, which we're going to talk about shortly. We might just be looking at a particular product or service and saying which of these activities are relevant for the delivery of this product or service from our organisational perspective, if we're providing this. So, for example, a commercial software product, we're looking, if we are an organisation that's developing these products, once we've sold them to the wider market, the operate and deliver space, that's on the customers to be managing those things. So we're not necessarily concerned with how we package up our products and services for those 2 elements that are not relevant from our point of view. If we were reflecting on end-to-end service, then we perhaps would be, because that's where the value chain aspect comes in. So I'll come on to that in a second. But to give you another view, so managed digital service, for example, if we're hosting a platform service or managed infrastructure, then we're just concerned with these 4 areas. So I'm really trying to demonstrate through this slide that we have these 8 different activities, and we're reflecting on different aspects of our products and services here. We're also going to be looking at the same activities when we look at the value chain, and we're considering all the things that we do as an organisation. And we want to make sure that we identify the most appropriate approach based on whatever it is that we're managing. Those of you who are familiar with ITIL 4, you'll absolutely recognise that there is a lot of alignment with the service value chain activities. If you remember, we had engage, plan and improve, which aren't on here. I'll come to that in a second. But we had design, transition. We had obtain and build, well, acquire and build. We'll tick that those boxes really, and deliver and support. Yeah, so we are building on those elements, providing a bit more clarity. But there was always this confusion as to why are design and transition grouped together when they're very different activities. But I think it does make sense to separate them out. And similarly with obtain, build, or acquire and build, and deliver and support. These are different activities that need to be managed, but all 8 of these activities represent that full 360-degree view of what's happening within a service, and that's how this is intended to be. So what about the service value chain? It is still there in ITIL version 5. We've dropped the word service because the emphasis is not just on the service value chain, it's the product and service value chain really, or just to make it easier, we've dropped the term product and service. We're just calling it the value chain. And the key aspect is that we do still link these activities together when we're considering value streams, and I've got a slide coming up to demonstrate this in a second. But the difference between the products and service lifecycle model and the value chain, even though we're talking about the same activities, is the emphasis of the product and service lifecycle model is on our products and services, how those products and services are managed over time, and we're sort of looking at using that life cycle model as a way of capturing that information. Whereas the value chain is looking at that full end-to-end, how we capture demand all the way through to realizing value, and it's that end-to-end approach and how we combine these activities together to ensure value creation as a whole. So this value chain aspect is perhaps more linked to our organizational operating model, looking at the bigger picture, whereas the products and service lifecycle model is more concerned with individual products and services and how we're going to manage those products and services over time effectively, and looking at those key 8 areas. So what happened to engage, plan and improve? Well, just to sort of say, they're not specifically listed as activities in either of those models, but they are still there. They continue to operate as a cross-cutting management capability across the value system. Of course, we need to engage with our stakeholders. Of course, we need to plan and coordinate workloads. Of course, we need to identify improvement opportunities. I think that this sort of conceptual image over here gives you an idea of what we're talking about. For each of those 8 value chain activities, then there will often be an element of engaging with stakeholders or planning and coordinating resources or looking to identify improvement opportunities, as we should be looking to improve everything, looking for improvement opportunities in all that we do. Well, that's where they've gone to, really. So whilst they're not described at that sort of high level, they're embedded into other areas. So engage, when we look at discover, deliver and support, there's going to be engagement activities as part of those specific activities. From a planning point of view, well, that ties in with our strategy and governance within our value system. And improvement, it should be embedded into all of our lifecycle activities rather than treated as a separate activity, because we should be looking to improve in all that we do. So whilst they're not there at the headline, they do exist within the framework as a whole. And I put this slide in here just to make a couple of points, really. One, there are 34 management practices, and they are largely unchanged in terms of the headlines. As I said, they're going to be slightly updated to just reflect these changes that are taking place. But the 34 practices are exactly as they have been in ITIL 4. The idea of the value chain is exactly the same as was intended in ITIL 4, that we've got value chain activities that use the various resources available from the practices in order to complete those activities as a whole, and value streams map across the value chain in the same way. I think that it's a bit of a neater approach now that we have these separate activities rather than the combined ones that we sort of had with ITIL 4. So I think that clarification was needed, and I think that it's ultimately going to enhance the overall take up and value that's received from this as an approach. So practices largely remain the same. The ITIL value system, just to including this at this point to just sort of demonstrate that all of the components of the value system, it's not the ITIL service value system anymore, it's the value system, and value chain remains at the centre. But at this high level, the only change is that the activities of the value chain have been updated. That's it essentially. And what hasn't really changed, there was some good stuff in ITIL 4, as I say, we don't need complete revolution. We're evolving things, and this slide is very deliberate. It says what hasn't really changed. There are subtle changes in all of these things, but on the headline, the bigger picture view, not much has changed. So the ITIL value system has been renamed. So it's not the service value system anymore. It's the ITIL value system, and it's the ITIL value chain at the centre rather than the service value chain. And the activities have updated, as we've already discussed. The 4 dimensions of service management is the 4 dimensions of products and service management now. Yeah, so it's products and services that are reflected in there. The ITIL guiding principles are exactly the same, just with a few minor updates, largely to reflect how AI might influence each of those guiding principles. I've just discussed the management practices, that they remain the same, and continual improvement is pretty much the same. The only change here is we've got down the side here, how do we keep the improvements relevant rather than how do we keep the momentum going? And it's just a different perspective to look at to make sure that we're continuing to make sure that the improvements that we're driving through our organisation are in alignment with the overall direction that the business wants to go in. So I would kind of say that these things haven't changed too much, and why should they? Because they are all creating significant value for us as they were. In terms of the qualification scheme, and this is what it looks like these days. So ITIL Foundation is still the starting point. One thing to mention over here in Practice Manager, these three modules of monitor, support, and fulfill, plan, implement, control, collaborate, assure, and improve are the modules carried over from ITIL 4. In ITIL 4, you were able to attend individual practice modules. So either whether it's through e-learning or classroom-based training, those don't exist anymore. The idea is that this is likely to other practices are likely to be considered in the future, but these are combined courses where we're looking at 5 practices across each of these things. And I think this is a good example of how ITIL was already being updated to be more practical, because a lot of the interest in ITIL was reflecting in the practices. One of the myths behind ITIL Foundation is that we don't cover the practices in ITIL Foundation anymore, or rather, that's perhaps not fair to say it's a myth. That there's been a shift of taking away some of the practices from Foundation because we cover them elsewhere in the advanced modules. But that doesn't mean to say that we don't cover what an incident is, or a problem, or change. These are all covered as part of the 8 value chain activities now, the product and service lifecycle activities. So that practical element remains, it's just packaged up in a slightly different way, and we don't prescriptively look at the practices in that way, but we look at the elements of the practices that contribute towards those various activities. So that's where the practices sit within ITIL version 5. I've talked about product, ITIL service, and ITIL experience contributing towards the managing professional qualification. But ITIL transformation is a key module which kind of sits across each of these things. So just going back to ITIL Practice Manager for a second. So in order to achieve the ITIL Practice Manager designation, you would need an ITIL Foundation certificate. You would need one of these 3 practice manager modules and the ITIL transformation module to be an ITIL practice manager. Okay. From an ITIL managing professional, it's foundation, product, service, experience, and transformation. And from an ITIL strategic leader designation, then it's the foundation, ITIL strategy, and transformation. So the transformation module is required for all of them, but then we can sort of divvy them up based on what our whatever your specific level of expertise is. And as before, ITIL master is the designation that you would achieve if you tick all of the boxes to be a practice manager, a managing professional, and an ITIL strategic leader. As I've mentioned, we have the extension module of ITIL AI governance available. It's possible that more extension modules will be added into the framework over time, but only ITIL AI governance is there currently. I'm sure some of you will have questions about how do we transition. You've got existing ITIL 4 qualifications, so some things to be aware of. The ITIL version 5 foundation course is ready, it's live at the moment. We are currently offering it as a 2-day training course through our public schedule, where we are providing, obviously, with the students with exam vouchers for them to book their exam at a time and date that suits them. We're still unsure whether 2 or 3 days is appropriate. For an on-site course, if we were delivering a course face-to-face, our recommendation would be to provide it as a 3-day training course where we provide the exam as part of the training so that we can cover all of those aspects within that. But 2 or 3 days for foundation, which is not on this slide, but just want to mention that before I get into this. There is a foundation bridge available, which is intended for only ITIL 4 qualified students. Okay, so if you've got an ITIL qualification prior to ITIL 4, and that's it, then it wouldn't enable you to sit the foundation bridging course. This is going to be a 1-day course with a 30-minute exam. And yeah, it's any ITIL 4 qualification, so foundation probably being the one that's most relevant, but you might be a managing professional transition maybe from ITIL 4, that would count as well. There is going to be a managing professional transition module in the same way that there was for 4, from 3 to 4. which is intended to be a 5-day course. If it's for anybody who has ITIL 4 managing professional or master, but a key point to pick up on this, it also is relevant for ITIL version 3 experts and ITIL version 3 masters as well. Okay. So if as long as you're at that sort of higher level, whether it's version 3 or 4, then you would meet the prerequisites to go on and attend the managing professional transition module. I've got a slide coming up which will demonstrate when these new modules will be available. It says exam to be confirmed. Let's talk about this. This might be a 2-exam module, so I'm not quite sure exactly where they're going with this, but it's not going to be released until May, so there's time for this to unfold, but the details of the exam are to be confirmed. What about ITIL 4? Well, because you might want to complete some ITIL 4 training to get you to the point where you can then transition across. Maybe you've attended Create, Deliver and Support, High Velocity IT and Direct Plan and Improve, but you haven't done Drive Stakeholder Value yet, so you might find it an easier route to complete Drive Stakeholder Value, and then you would be an ITIL 4 managing professional and you can take part in this. So you should be aware that there's no defined date announced yet for when ITIL 4 qualifications will no longer be available. And the suggestion is that they will be available throughout all of 2026, possibly beyond as well. But at the moment, we don't know at what point they will be absolutely retired, but they are available throughout this year. This is the certification roadmap for ITIL 5 courses. So Foundation and Foundation Bridge are available now. E-learning of those courses will be available in Q2. An interesting point that as far as the exam is concerned, this is a shift in a different direction for ITIL. Typically, all exams at ITIL have been closed book in the past, but now only Foundation and Foundation Bridge is closed book with all of these other ones. The idea is that you are allowed to use the publication in the exam, obviously using the People Cert exam portal, where they will have the ebook available for you to reference. Product, service and experience were launched yesterday officially, but just to make you aware that these are People Cert release dates. So these are dates when they make them available make the exams available effectively. Us training providers might will need a little bit more time to catch up on those things. So we'll be announcing product, service and experience very soon, but they're not quite available through us just yet. And you can see the e-learning options for those will be available in Q2 2026. ITIL transformation and ITIL strategy from People's First perspective will be launched on the 9th of April. And the ITIL Manager Professional Transition, which I'm sure a lot of you will be considering and keen to have a look at that. That will be released by People Cert on the 14th of May, and ITIL AI Governance is due for release in Q2 2026, with e-learning in the following quarter. So that gives you a visual of when to expect all of these various certifications to be available. But Foundation is available now, and feel free to come and talk to me about how you might want to train yourself up or your team to this latest version. So of course you are all on this session thinking about ITIL version 5. We are here to help. Some of you know us well, some of us not so well. We've been around for over 40 years now. I can't believe that when I was pulling this together. We are a safe choice. Most training providers teach the syllabus. Our experience spans all ITIL versions. We know where all this stuff has come from. We know where it's going. We're there to help. We're happy to engage with you, whether it's just booking people on training courses with us or arranging bespoke events. But if you want us to provide something like this session for your team of people, transition briefings, then we're more than happy to do those things. We want to develop our relationships with our customers, provide greater value, making them aware of these developments and how they might impact them quite key. Advice and guidance on any training plans that you might have, optimizing an approach to ITIL training and certification, we can absolutely help with. And ITIL maturity assessments, the ITIL maturity model, it will be updated to reflect ITIL version 5, and of course we're keeping a close eye on that. We can actually practically help you Look at how your implementation, I don't like that word implementation, but you know what I mean, your alignment to the ITIL framework is, how it's going. Identify what maturity levels you're at, come up with a plan for improvement to get you where you need to be. All these things we can help you with. We are helping organisations turn ITIL guidance into practical real-world service improvements, and we can do this for you and your organisation if we are doing it already. So please do keep on talking to us. After this event, I will be sending you via email the recording of this presentation, the copies of my slides. Feel free to come back to me and let's engage on what you're thinking of doing next to embrace some of this new stuff. So in summary, the evolution of ITIL continues. Hopefully I've demonstrated to you that whilst ITIL 4 has been updated, it's not as big an update as when we went from version 3 to 4. We're reflecting on digital products and services now rather than just service led, and the product and service lifecycle helps to strengthen that practical application, and the new publications and the qualification schemes extended to be updated more for a modern digital organization really, and we are here to help you through your continuing ITIL journey, so hopefully we can do that moving forwards. So thank you for listening. It's not an opportunity for me now to stop sharing the screen. My contact details are there on the slide if you do want to have a discussion. I'm looking at the questions and things in the chat and Q&A, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go through some of those things. Hopefully I've answered many of your questions, and if I don't answer them now, then feel free to get in touch with me to discuss in more detail. Let's see what questions we've got here. So are there expiry dates on the new qualifications? Good question. So ITIL 4 was announced back in the day, and back then there wasn't any expiry dates on qualifications, and then PeopleCert did introduce the expiry of qualifications. So after 3 years, then they do expire, and the intention from what I've seen is that it's exactly the same with ITIL version 5. This is not an opportunity that they don't have this policy in place for people to go off and resit the qualifications that they have already achieved. It's more to get them to enable students to continually develop, to take part in continual professional development activities via the PeopleCert Plus membership scheme, and potentially go on and do the next advanced module, which would automatically reset the expiry of qualifications. So yes, as far as I'm aware, that they are putting the same expiry dates in. Someone's asked, Foundation Bridge, is this applicable for people on ITIL 4 intermediate certifications currently, and what level will they transition to? Back to foundation level or equivalent ITIL 5 intermediate? Good question. So anybody who has any ITIL 4 qualification would meet the prerequisites to go on and do a Foundation Bridge, an ITIL version 5 Foundation Bridge, whether that's an ITIL 4 Foundation certificate or any of the intermediate certificates. But by successfully passing the Foundation Bridge, you would only achieve ITIL version 5 Foundation status. It wouldn't be the equivalent ITIL 5 Intermediate. You would, your expiry date on your ITIL 4 qualifications will it will be added 3 years from that date because you've attended an updated ITIL qualification, but it wouldn't put you at the same intermediate level. You need to be looking at the managing professional transition module if that's what you're really looking at. Okay, and I'm just looking at other questions in Q&A. Somebody's asked the question about, is this session being recorded? It is, and we will be making it available so people can catch up and look at this afterwards, and feel free to distribute it amongst your colleagues, and if any of them have any questions, feel free to share my contact details with, and I will gladly assist as best I can. I think that's every question answered based on what's been posted. Some of you are thanking me for my time, and hopefully you have found it of great use. as I've mentioned on the presentation, these sessions are really to demonstrate our credentials and give you an update on what's going on out there. And we want to use this as a means to continue our discussions. So please do keep in contact with us. Please ask me or my colleagues anything that we can help you with. As everyone seems to be signing off, I'm going to wish you all goodbye. Have a lovely rest of day and a lovely weekend. And hopefully I will see you all soon on another upcoming session, whether it's ITIL led or whatever that might well be. Okay, guys, take care. I'll speak to you all soon. Bye bye now.